G'day everyone, welcome to the FOGS Queenslander Podcast as we review game number one, won by New South Wales, 18 points to 6 at Suncorp Stadium. I'm Mark Braybrook, joined by FOG number 9, Wally Lewis, FOG number 173, Matt Gillett. Unfortunately, FOG number 51 and captain of the 95 side, Trevor Gilmester, is struggling today. He's had one too many reunions, gentlemen, I think, so we've got an empty chair.
I think he's still leading the way 30 years later off the field. So, yeah, big fella's not here, but I did see a little photo this morning of him, if you can zoom in on that and have a look.
With James Maloney.
James Maloney there, Wal.
Oh,
He's got the fist up. Maloney's got the thumbs down. So hopefully maybe Gilly did.
Was that pre-game, was it? Must have been pre-game.
That's definitely after.
Pre-game.
That's definitely
after,
after the Caxton. I was with Jimmy last
okay.
night, and he's a very much a pest. So hopefully Gilly's tossed him out the window there at the Caxton and got rid of him. But we'll go on today and get the job done. But
I think Gilly's actually pleased that this game's over and the 95 reunions are most probably over for the year as well, because it's been hard yards for him. It must be, let's be honest, as the captain of that team, it has been hard yards.
Yeah, I think they had a couple of practice runs before going through with the official night, and I agree with you. Gilly will, I think he's just sitting back, relaxing, and being quite critical of those that won't make it to the next time we meet.
Well, and I think he's most probably like a lot of Queenslanders that basically didn't want to get out of bed this morning.
No.
Initial thoughts, gentlemen, on last night's performance?
Yeah, just simply outplayed, outmuscled, and the amount of territory that New South Wales were making in the early stages of the game, I thought was quite indicative. It was a real indication of what was possibly about to take place. I think the guys certainly gave their best. There really did appear to be a lack of dominance in Queensland's ability to make some territory.
yeah, I think what Wally just touched on there, mate. Obviously the discipline and penalties. We've done that to ourselves, which is not what you want to do in an Origin match. And that first half was not the Queensland way that we wanted to play. You can definitely see the Blues getting their numbers in tackles and really dominating us after their kick chase. They're plus 2 or 3, and they really dominate us there, and which makes it hard for our big boys to get back behind the ball and have a bit of impact there. But you can definitely see from where we were sitting at the game last night and watching the boys off the ball, they're pretty blown away at that start of the game.
Yeah, they were just sort of like hanging on for so long. They never really got themselves into a position where they could mount sustained pressure on New South Wales. And part of that was the discipline, the number of penalties conceded. And for me, it was highlighted by the Harry Grant penalty, where he just struck out him to play the ball in open space. And on the back of that penalty, and another one to Daly Cherry Evans, New South Wales scored. But that's so un-Harry Grant stroke Melbourne-like. It sort of came from nothing in that respect.
Yeah, if he had done it playing for Melbourne, I'm sure Bellyache would have gone to town. Yeah. I've always liked Harry as a player. I think he's been extremely disciplined, and he really has a go. His positional play is first class. He'll probably be one of the Queenslanders sitting back being very critical of his own efforts, and it just didn't appear as though things were progressing the way that they had planned.
Sign of frustration in some respects too, isn't it, Gillett?
I think they were probably just finding a way to get out of it cheaply.
Yeah.
It's not what you want to do in Origin or in a game of footy, but it's just probably a bit of frustration trying to get things to turn their way, which you've got to do by rolling up the sleeves and getting through your sets and running hard with support and kicking long like the Blues were doing to us and making it difficult for them to come out of their end. So, mate, it looked like that start of the game, we're just hanging in there trying to get through our sets and doing all we could. But again, those penalties and the discipline through that first half is something that obviously it's that first half and you do get your break, but you're still on the back foot with that momentum coming into half time. You've let a lot of gas out of the tank, and try and get up for that second half. They just continue what they were doing to us in the first half.
Mark, I was going to say too, the size of the New South Wales pack, that was something that I think played an enormous role in the outcome of the game. But just how they kept on the front foot was quite remarkable. Some of the biggest guys currently playing the game, the mobility that they displayed throughout the course of the match had Queensland on the back foot, struggling to get up off the ground to either get to marker or back in the defensive line. It really did appear to play a major role in the outcome.
Yeah, and I'm sure in the review that the coaching staff will do, they'll talk about that while the size and the fact that Payne Haas was just Payne Haas again. Mitch Barnett was terrific, but then on the edges, Angus Crichton and Liam Martin were creating not so much havoc, but just making it really difficult for Queensland to control that part of the game. And yeah, you're right, they just seemed bigger. And then Isaiah Yeo was outstanding as well. So there's some things there that they need to look at, Queensland, no question, Gillo.
Yeah, you do, mate. Obviously, you mentioned the two back rows there for the Blues, but then you also look outside of that with Crichton and Latrell,
yeah.
And then you've got so two big centres, big bodies as well. So we know what they can do with the ball, but yeah, they're a big side across the whole field. So very. Something to work on there, and a bit of change of thought of how you want to sort of attack those bigger players and get them moving around. But definitely that middle third is obviously where the game's won, and New South Wales last night definitely showed that towards us. But again, disappointing for all Queenslanders to be a part of that loss, especially at Suncorp Stadium in Game 1. We had 3 debutants on the night, which they definitely would have enjoyed the occasion and got to run out to Suncorp Stadium with a packed house. But we know
and they did all right.
They did all right.
They did all right. I thought Trent Liero was through when he came on. I thought Robert Toyer held his own. Bo Fermor didn't see much game time, and he's a bigger body on the edge. He might come into consideration for more game time in Game 2. Yeah,
well, usually the selectors take a look at those that probably didn't live up to the expectations that they'd had. If you lose a game normally, despite Queensland's record of not getting rid of players, just putting them back, having faith in them to be able to perform. But when you are realistic in the assessment of this game, we've got to be able to deny New South Wales some time and space with the footy and the total dominance that they showed in the middle. That was something that I was used to seeing, that every time they carted the ball through, one of the big boys taking the ball forward, they were making 12, 14 metres in a carry. And we're used to seeing in the NRL games that sort of cut back to about 7 or 8 maximum. And if we can't do that, well, we're kind of going to be behind the 8 ball, and we're going to have to think of a different way to take it on next time.
It's a shame Gilly isn't here, because one of the key areas outside of the discipline for Queensland last night, 49 missed tackles in that game, 27 ineffective tackles. I mean, that's a huge number for Origin. For any game.
That's enormous. Any game.
Yeah.
But particularly with the importance of an Origin game and being able to dictate terms to your opposition in defence and not allow them to make plenty of territory, but also make sure that the tackles aren't missed.
Yeah, might have to get Trevor back in the camp,
in the sandpit.
Get him in there in the sand, a bit of old school. But yeah, like that, you can't win any game missing that many tackles and the ineffective as well. So something to work on there throughout their next game, heading over to Perth. So something that will be looked at and to see where they can maybe make a few tweaks of how they missed those tackles, whether they were too tight and those tackles are missed out in the edges. I'm not too sure, but yeah, so it's definitely something they need to work on and look at. It's just what your Origin's built on is that wall and defending and trusting each other inside and outside. So again, mate, it's fixable. There's probably a few minor tweaks there that we can adjust and do well in Game 2.
Yeah, and Billy did make the comment in his press conference after the game that, yes, it might have looked like Queensland was in the game on the scoreboard because of New South Wales only kicking 1 goal. It was 4 tries to 1. But he was honest. He said we were never really in the game as the way the game was played. And Wally, I think that is the biggest thing that would disappoint him, the fact that Origin won at home after losing a series, the fact that not that they didn't turn up. The effort was there. He said, can't fault the effort, etc. But there was just a lack of something there last night for Game 1 of a series.
Yeah, that's a a very accurate assessment. It was missing, and it didn't cause much drama to New South Wales defence. They were very rarely on the back foot and desperate to stop Queensland. So we've got to try and come up with some ideas on how we're going to offer some tough choices to the New South Wales defence. And, back to that old favourite saying of mine, you've got to create doubt in the mind of the defender virtually every time that you're in a try-scoring position. And to be able to do that probably opens up the opportunities for Queensland to become more dominant. So I think Billy will sit down, and while he's been very kind in his assessment, I think he'll be a realist, understanding that we've got to win this one, otherwise the series is over.
Yeah, back-to-back loss. And it's 3 losses, 3 games in a row that Queensland's now lost to New South Wales, and 2 of those 3 have been at Suncorp Stadium. That would be of concern as well in that respect. But having discussed, some of the negatives of last night, was there anything that you liked from any players? I thought Jeremiah Nanai looked dangerous at times, and one of the great Origin moments that when he chopped Latrell Mitchell in half, that led to the Selwyn Cobbo try. I mean, that was Origin, and that was from a bloke who just thought, I'm going to try and change something here.
And a guy of his size, Jeremiah's size, to be able to cut down as he did in that tackle, that was extraordinary. That was something we used to see from Gillett on a whole pile of the time. And I can remember one of the greatest Origin moments that I got to be able to celebrate, run away from a try, came from a Trevor Gilmeister tackle. Spilled the ball about 40 metres out, and you could just see that the New South Wales blokes were oh no, there's another tackle from Gillett. That's the way that he does it, and to be able to dominate in a position like that. But New South Wales were very good last night, and while we assess it for the next game, we can expect them to be that good again. But Queensland certainly do need to be much better than they were last night. It was a tough line for a lot of the guys that were getting introduced to State of Origin football, which is a cut above the rest, a cut above the other games.
I think, on Nanai too, that impressed me with the way he did defend last night. We know what he can do with the ball, and how good he is in the air, and to pull off some tries, and the footwork he does have. But definitely noticeable that he's be working on his defence and trying to make an impact that way, and he did that last night. So very pleasing to see. And for me, I think Trent Liera coming off the bench, I really like what he was doing out there. He's sitting out there game watching what they are doing off the ball. As well, he was pretty dominant in there. Obviously, comes out of a great system down there in Melbourne. So, I was very pleased with what he got done out there on the footy paddock, and he's definitely that build of an Origin player, and the way he played last night, I was very impressed with him.
Well, you'd also like to think that some of those Queensland players in key areas will be better for the run, and they've got another couple of games coming up. Harry Grant, for example, has missed a bit of footy with that hammy. Lindsay Collins was eased sort of back into it last night, whether or not he comes into contention for a starting berth. I thought Mo Fatawaker and Tino battled really hard. And one of Mo's tackle in the southeastern corner where he grabbed, I think it might have been Mitch Moses by the shorts, dragging down, or whoever it was, making the break, which almost saved the try. But unfortunately, they just ran out of troops on the other side of the field. So as Billy said, no questioning the effort. But you'd like to think Cameron Munster will be better. It looked like at times last night that Cam was struggling to find some rhythm or some sort of play where they could build some pressure.
Yeah, and he's pretty happy with the man that he's got in the halves with him. He's had plenty of experience working with DCE. It didn't appear though that he had all that much success in the players available to him when he was carting the ball forward. That was something that I've always watched him with great admiration. The way that he carts the ball, he dictates terms to the opposition, makes them run where they want to open up a bit of a space, stretch the hole a little bit. There weren't too many of those occasions last night.
I also, a little bit like watching the Dolphins at times, trying to get the ball to Hammer. Hammer didn't see much of the footy last night at all, did he? In open space, giving him the ball one-on-one, those sorts of players. And Toya really got the ball in a one-on-one situation. So maybe finding a way that we can get the Hammer more involved in the game as well.
Yeah, correct. I think, obviously they did a pretty good job on Hammer last night, I think, defending him and not giving him too much space, which is obviously what you want to do with a guy like that with a lot of pace. So, like you said there, Mark, I think, if we can, maybe bring Hammer into that middle part of the field and evolve our game a bit more around, trying to crack them through the middle with a bit of speed and stuff like that. I thought last night they were just probably trying to go around them a bit too much without a bit of more direction, a bit of more punch through the middle and working on our edges where you sort of want to target those, your half and back row. You sort of want to get around them to, generate some play the ball speed, get your bigger men at those troops and then have a look at those short sides. But I think they'll have a look at that and that's what sort of seemed to me, that they were trying to go a bit more lateral and Ponga out the back didn't have too many options once they got him the ball as well. So, yeah, a bit more direction through that middle, bringing the Hammer inside in there as well, and just adds another threat and they'll have a look.
I thought New South Wales, the execution of their tackle count was... their game plan, was terrific. They showed patience. Made sure that whenever Queensland were getting the ball in the early stages of the match, it was deep inside their own territory. They were getting it and just trying to recover the oxygen in the lungs after stopping them from scoring tries. But once they got the ball, Queensland, you could just see that they were desperately just trying to get back into the force and back game. And when they kicked the ball, it was always sort of get ready for another set of six. And I thought the New South Wales guys were very accurate in how they expected the game to take place in the early stages.
Yeah, and in the modern game, it was strange to only see one goal line dropout last night. That's all, and it was at the back end of the game. It was, normally, Queensland never got in a position to put in too many attacking kicks, and when they did, it seemed like it was the only option was the kick for Jeremiah Nanai to try and leap high and take the ball. Maybe, play a little bit away from that news that occasionally rather than seeing that every time they got down there. But those things can be discussed in the next couple of weeks. But Wally and Gillett, the things that you've pointed that stood out, the discipline and the missed tackles, they can be remedied at that level pretty easily, can't they, for Queensland? If you're looking for positives heading into game 2, you would not expect Queensland to defend that poorly again and switch on, boys, stop giving away so many penalties. They're easy tweaks, aren't they?
Yeah, and especially if the players have got that extra bit of experience being alongside each other, playing alongside each other, understanding what it's like to play alongside that player. Have a look at the golden years when Queensland's been dominant, because we've had a group of guys that basically didn't need to have the team changed. Yep. We knew exactly what it was like to play alongside these guys. I think they'll feel quite comfortable. They'll be increased in their intentions, what they want to achieve the next time around. And I think Billy will probably work, not that he didn't work hard with it, but work a long time on making sure that they do have a little bit of self-confidence, an increase in the self-confidence, and to be able to get into it and just make the most of what was a very uncomfortable night for them.
Important couple of weeks for a number of players in the team, and a number of players maybe pushing for selection just on the fringe outside the team before the team for Game 2 is selected. Is there any players that you'll potentially be keeping an eye on over the next fortnight? Off the top, Beau Fermor, as I mentioned before, to see what his form is like. Jaden Sewer from the St George Illawarra Dragons. Speaking to Andrew McCulloch and Scotty Sattler last night, that was a name they brought up, that edge runner with a bit of size, etc. Is there anyone that comes to your mind that you'll be keeping an eye on, and the selectors will be looking at to see how they're playing?
You've got Corey Horsburgh there. That's obviously been in the mix, and he's had his shot there to pull that Maroons jersey on. And as we've seen with his form at Canberra, he's been playing some outstanding footy, and he's a fiery character as well. So maybe having someone like him off the bench to come and make that little bit of an impact like Spencer does for the Blues to rattle a few cages and come out there, do his job, cause a bit of hassle and a bit of grief through that middle third. He's one player that you'd probably keep an eye on and have a think about. But I think obviously Beau and Ruben Cotter. Obviously Rubes plays in the middle for the Cows, so might be a little bit of adjustment there of bringing Rubes off the bench to do a job through the middle and putting Trent into that. Oh, sorry, not Trent, for putting Beau into that back row position. And
because you mentioned size, and Reuben Cotter is a Wally Lewis medalist, and
Yeah,
he's a quality player, but he's not the biggest player on the park, and sometimes that makes a difference.
Yeah, it sure does. But there's been plenty of times where Queensland have had a much smaller
Alfie,
set
Gilly.
set of
roll 'em
forwards, and
off,
Gilly's
yeah.
the classic example. And it's about taking greater control of the game, playing it the way that you want to, not the way that they're making you. So to be able to do that and play the game in a positional outcome where you're almost running them off their feet. And we're talking about not having a pack that's as big as the opposition. Well, the big opposition don't like getting run around all that often. So perhaps Billy will make an alteration to the game plan and open the game up a lot more than Queensland displayed in the series opener.
And maybe use Tom Dearden a little bit differently.
So I've seen there's a stat that each time Harry Grant's started at 9, the Queensland side hasn't won.
No.
Oh, really?
So if we, I think
it was a
that.
stunning
Yeah,
stat.
yeah. So put him,
Harry, you'd
put
like
him
to
to
change that, wouldn't
put him to 14 and get Tommy to start. We've seen what Tommy when he come on. Obviously back end of the game there, but shows a bit of energy. He can hold his own as a half in that middle part of the field, and get Harry Grant on later in that first half to do
or
his
even
stint.
if you start with Harry and bring Tommy on 10 to 15 before half time, potentially
spark,
as they're starting to get a little bit tired and that spark you might need, I don't know, before the break. But yeah, he only played a handful, as did Bo Fulmore last night. So
well, you'd expect that would be the case, that they both have periods on the field, maybe 20 minutes, and do a switch and work them to quite a level where it's testing New South Wales defence, looking for the tired guys, making them be out of control in the ability to be able to move up off the line as quickly as they possibly can.
Yeah, they used to do it a few years ago, even when I was playing, and we had Cooper Cronk, and then Cherry would come off the bench, and there'd just be an extra half that were playing out the back. So one of the forwards would come on and come off, and then Cherry would come on or Cooper would come on and play that number, that extra player out the back. A few more options either side that you could sort of pick, but who knows? It's been done before, but yeah, definitely bring Tommy into the game. He's a competitor. He's going to show up no matter what. So be interesting again to see what the game plan will be for game 2.
Well, if I'd known, I wasn't aware of that Harry Grant stat. That's a good one. If I'd known that, Queensland with no chance, because there's another stat here, Wal, that I was telling Gillett before. I'm not sure you're aware of this, but up until last night, there'd been 3 State of Origin matches played on May 28 at Suncorp Stadium, game at Suncorp Stadium on May 28, all game ones, of course, as well. New South Wales have won all 3. So they've now won all 4 game ones on May 28 at Suncorp Stadium. So potentially in the future,
No
Queensland,
more games
on May
28th
28
of-
at Suncorp Stadium. So 1985, you would have played in that one?
Yes,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
1997, I should say. 2014 and now 2025. You throw in the Harry Grant stat, there were no chance then.
Yeah.
No chance whatsoever. But heading into game 2, gentlemen over in Perth, what are your confidence levels like at the moment? What you suspect or know deep down that Queensland will turn it around heading to Perth?
Well, they have to, mate. They have to,
yeah.
yeah. So, again, it's a matter of the boys going away. They'll be doing a lot of, self-reflection on their performances, and like we talked about at the start with that discipline stuff, like that's just an individual. You've got to get your game right. You've got to rock up on the night, understanding your role, and go out and perform and do it to the best you can. And we'll let down there with those few silly penalties. So again, it's self-reflect, get back to clubland, do your best you can there, and then once you're in camp, heading over to Perth, it's time to knuckle down and get the job done. And again, Billy will go away as well and reflect on how he sort of ran things and where they can improve. But they'll definitely come up with the right game plan for this game too, which we've sort of talked about a few options today of what they could sort of change. But we're not the coaches, so we're just here to have a chat and see what we think.
Sounds easy.
Yeah, it sounds easy from the outside, but again, it's going to be a massive performance from us. Over in Perth.
Yeah, and absolutely imperative. Billy probably put into plan or into place a plan that he thought was going to be the best way to cause drama in the New South Wales defence. There wasn't a lot of success in that area, so it's going to be interesting to see whether he completely changes that game plan or makes an alteration to some of the players, changes who he's got in the forward pack. Some tough choices to be made, but the one thing that we can be guaranteed is that New South Wales will not be easy. They've got the opportunity sitting there now waiting to wrap up the series in 2 games, and that is a wonderful inspiration to have. But I'm very confident that the Queenslanders are going to take a several viewings of this game once Billy takes them back into the camp, but it really will be imperative that the game plan is put into action, because simply carting the ball up one out offered very little trouble for New South Wales defence.
Yeah, and despite that 18 points to 6 scoreline, it must also be said it is still one of the great sporting events in this country to be at Suncorp Stadium, game 1 of an Origin series. Despite the fact the result was a bit of a letdown for Queensland, it's still one of the sporting highlights of the year. No question about that at all. Anyway, the Blues head to Perth, leading 1-0 in the best-of-3 series. It is do or die for Queensland over in Perth for game 2 to try and avoid back-to-back series defeats. We'll be back with our preview, the FOGS Queenslander Podcast preview, on June 16. So hit that notification bell so that you're aware that when the 1995 captain and FOG number 51 returns after his slumber, after all the celebrations for his 30-year side, Gillett will be back, Wally will be back, Matt Gillett will be back. I'm Mark Braybrook. I'll be back as well. We look forward to your company on June 16.
Where are you, Gilly?
Thanks for watching this episode of the FOGS Queenslander Podcast. If there's a FOG you want to hear from, leave a comment to let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos.